Hey guys, I'm Lauren Rivers, and today I would like to announce a project in development, a Blue Moon Anthology. The inspiration for this book comes from Trevor, also known as Mystic Sabrionic on FA, and Daddy Trev P on Twitter. I was looking through his gallery one afternoon, and I came across an image of a werewolf cowboy, and for some reason this concept really just clicked with me. For one thing, I don't think I've seen too many cases where these two things have been combined. And if you've read my book, then you know that I've written for werewolves before. Now, the way that it works in Blue Moon is that werewolves are generally not public knowledge. Most people are not aware that they exist. But it's also been suggested that they've been around for a while. So I was curious to explore a few ideas I'd had about how wares had interacted with the human race at different points in our history. Some point during the development, during the book, At some point during the development of the novel, I concluded that there were going to be 12 subgroups of different wares that were positioned all across the world. Now, this wouldn't just be limited to werewolves. This would also have werebears, werecats, werehorses, and so on and so forth. And while developing the rules, I also came up with the conclusion that while these groups all work together in a loose mutual cooperation sense, they're not really unified in terms of a solid group. So while they all kind of work alongside each other, they don't really work with each other, if that makes any kind of sense. And so, bearing that in mind, I thought that each group would probably have a different way that they would have interacted with the human race over the course of their existence. And at first, I had contemplated the idea of doing 10 different stories that would cover different ways that these groups had interacted with the human race. And at some point, I decided to pare it down to 5 different settings with 2 stories set with each cast of characters. The first setting is ancient Egypt, which features a couple of wares that basically form the basis for the Egyptian religion. And the second concept is werebirds during the Black Death, because it's established during the first book that the wares can do partial shifts. In other words, they don't have to transform completely to their other forms. They can just do parts of themselves. And it occurred to me that this could provide some interesting story possibilities if some werebirds were to pose as angels. The third story idea that I had contemplated was werecats in Salem. I kind of had the idea that, Salem would be a good place to use the werecats, because what goes better with cats than, black cats than witchcraft. So I had the idea. The third idea is based on werecats in Salem. Now, when you think of witchcraft, the first thing that usually comes to mind is black cats. Now, that may not be a fair association, but it is what it is. It's been popularized by a lot of years of Halloween decorations. But my idea here was that it would be interesting to see the werecats operating a form of an underground railroad to get, other wares out of the danger zone and back to safety. The fourth idea, which of course was what started this whole concept, was werewolves in the Wild West. So I started tossing around the idea about this werewolf cowboy character and a couple of adventures he might get himself into. And the last concept that I decided to play around with was the idea of a werewolf soldier unit in 1945 during World War II, because it occurred to me that if the U.S. government was aware of werewolves, there's no way they would not have put them into play during a situation like World War II. So I was kind of interested to see what might have happened during those courses of events and exactly how close we might have come to some pretty significant changes in our current history. And if there's sufficient reader participation, I might offer the opportunity for one of these groups of characters to get a third adventure, so we'll see how that goes. Now, my goal for these stories is to provide a varied perspective on the different viewpoints and methodologies of various were species and how our world has been shaped by their influence, whether or not we were aware of it. So if you're looking forward to seeing these, I'm going to release at least 5 of these stories publicly. I think the other 5 I might just keep for physical publication. But if you're interested, you can check them out when they're released early on my Patreon and when they will eventually be released publicly on my FA. So keep an eye out for those. Catch you later.
Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter and a few other places on the web, or support me via Patreon or Ko-fi. Zebra hugs!